Hey everyone, it's me, Dr. GB, and I wanted to check in about some things I noticed on the solutions and kinetics quizzes. All right, so first let's talk about the solutions quiz. So one of the essay questions on the solutions quiz was talking about Rayleigh law and deviations from Rayleigh's law. And so I gave you aniline here and acetone over here. And I told you that the predicted vapor pressure was 600 torr and the actual was 470 torr. All right, and so y'all should have been able to deduce from those numbers that this was a negative deviation, all right, because the actual vapor pressure was lower than the predicted. And then many of you understood that you had to mention in your answer that the interactions between aniline and acetone would be stronger than aniline on their own and acetone on their own. And you had to actually apply that to the molecules, all right? So what happens here is aniline, all right, has the ability to make H bonds on its own. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, we're going to erase that. We'll go ahead and we'll draw the little lone pairs down here. All right, so what happens here is aniline can hydrogen bond with itself because it's got a hydrogen attached to a nitrogen on it. Acetone, however, can only dipole with itself. All right, so this is a polar bond. We have a partial negative, a partial positive. All right, there we go. All right, so the dipole, the negative dipole on the carbon is attracted on one, the negative dipole on the oxygen on one acetone is attracted to the positive dipole on the carbon of another. Now, so acetone can't hydrogen bond with itself, but the minute we throw it in with an aniline, you can have the oxygen on the acetone accept a hydrogen bond from one of those hydrogens on aniline. So the deal here is that aniline can hydrogen bond on its own, but acetone can't. So when you put them together, acetone can now make a hydrogen bond. So the interactions between aniline and acetone are stronger than just acetone on its own and aniline on its own. And so we see a lower vapor pressure than we would expect because more molecules are staying in the liquid phase. That depends on the fact that intermolecular forces exist in the liquid phase, but not in the gas phase. Another big one was talking about the difference between CO and NO. Okay, so y'all saw that for the Henry's constant question one, CO had a higher Henry's constant than NO, which means it was more soluble, but you had to go into why. And so many of y'all correctly ascertained that it was due to a difference in polarity, but if all you put was a difference in polarity, you only got 3.5 points out of 4 because I really wanted you to dig into why it was polar. All right, so if we look at the electronegativity, and polarity comes from the electronegativity difference between two atoms. So carbon has a, a Pauling electronegativity of 2.5, oxygen's is 3.5, nitrogen's is 3, and oxygen's is 3.5, I think. So the change in electronegativity, or the delta En here, is 1, and the delta En here is 0. All right, so you have to tie in the fact that the electrons are more unevenly distributed in CO than NO, and so those are going to have bigger dipoles than here. And in fact, this NO is really at the border of what we would consider almost to be nonpolar. Okay, and so many of you got all the way, but there was some confusion here on, I noticed people were saying just plain old electronegativity of one is higher than the other. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understand that it's due to the electronegativity difference between two atoms. Atoms have individual atoms have electronegativity, individual electronegativity values, but it's not the individual values that matters, it's the difference. So for instance, fluorine is the most electronegative atom with a Pauling electronegativity value of 4. So you could say, oh, fluorine, wow, that's really electronegative, but this bond has a delta En of 0 because they're the same electronegativity. So this molecule is nonpolar, even though the individual fluorine atoms are super electronegative. So if you're ever talking about polarity in a bond, you need to make sure you distinguish between the electronegativity difference being across versus the versus individual electronegativities. I also saw a lot of references to resonance structures, and like, yes, no. So if you mention the charges and the dipoles and the permanent versus the non-permanent, you got another point back, but it's not so much that it's a resonance structure as the electrons are being unevenly shared. Okay, another place where a lot of people got tripped up was question 4 on the kinetics quiz. The reason being, this looks a lot like the initial rate questions you've seen, but it's not quite the same and it's more complicated. So there's a couple things that are going on here. Alrighty, so when we have two reactants in our equation and we want to find the dependence on one, what we want to do is we want to find, if each of these is an individual experiment, we want to find where we have two experiments where the concentration of one stays the same while the other changes. So for instance, with NO, so if we're trying to look for the difference in O and OO minus, we have two reactions where O and OO minus changes, but NO stays constant. So we could either go from 1 to 2 because NO stays constant and O and OO minus, and we go between 1 and 2, we see a doubling if you're going from bottom to top, or a halving if you're going from top to bottom. Okay, so that's one experiment. The other one is if we look over here at the second set, all right, NO stays constant or doesn't change, and then when we go from here to here, we change by a factor of 1.5. Okay, all right, so those are what we can do to isolate for O and OO minus. Now, something that may be like a little throwing off here is you're used to seeing values changing, getting bigger when we go between experiments, but for 1 to 2, you get smaller when you go down, and then you get bigger when you go up. So in theory, we could look at either of these where we keep NO constant to solve for OO and OO minus. We could do 1 or 2, or we could do 3 to 4. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at 3 to 4 here. And actually, you know what? We can go ahead and we can do both. Okay, so when we go from 1.25 times to the minus 4, or excuse me, we're going to go from bottom to top here. So when we go, I always like to go from the smaller number to the bigger number, and that's just something that keeps me balanced, okay? So if we go from 6.25 times 10 to the negative 5th, and we go to 1.25 times 10 to the negative 4th, we are doubling in size. When we go, and that is our concentration, when we look at our rate for our overall reaction rate, we go from 1.02 times 10 to the negative 11 to 2.03 times 10 to the negative 11. Okay, alrighty. So when we go from 1.02 times 10 to the negative 11 to 2.03 times 10 to the negative 11, we also go increase by 2 times. So we increase 2, and our change here is 2 to the 1. So that means we have first order dependence on O and OO minus. All right. In fact, if we were to go and plug it in, and we were to do log of the rates, that should give us a value of 1. Keep in mind, again, whenever you are doing these, make sure you put the bigger one on top, because if you put the negative one on top, it can give you a negative number and you might get confused. It's all just a matter of perspective, whether we're going from the bigger or the smaller number. Because if we have something that's dependent on the first order, it's if you decrease the concentration, the rate will decrease by the same amount. So I always like to put the big number on top so we always get a positive number. Okay, so we've established that we have first order dependence for O and OO minus. So the question then becomes, how do we know what's going on with NO? So we want to solve and try to find a situation where O and OO minus stays the same, but NO does not. So let's look at O and OO minus. farticles. If we look at O and O minus, every single concentration changes. So you may be wondering, Dr. GB, what do we do when we don't know the dependence? So what we can do is we can do this, all right? But we can do it with we can do it with both the concentrations, all right? So let's go ahead and set up our situation. All right, so we're going to do it. We're going to have to pick two equations, and we're going to pick two equations where both of them change because we want to see a change in NO reside in a change of a rate of the overall reaction rate. But we can do this because we are okay to do this because with O and OO minus, we know the dependence, so we can factor that in. And we're going to look at the differences when we go from reaction 2 to reaction 3. Okay, so let's do the log. Okay, so the log of our rate for NO is 6.25 times 10 to the negative 4 over, whoops, we got to do our reaction rate. Whoops-a-daisy, here we go, it's rate. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're actually going to do it a little bit differently. And so we're going to do this like we did in the... when we're comparing two variables, what we can do is we can look at the rate of experiment 3 over the rate of experiment 2. And then what we can do is we can look at how we can do the log, or the log of the rate over here, the log of the rate over, and then what we can do is we can do the log of concentration of NO for 3 over the concentration of NO3 of NO for 2 times the raised to the n power times the concentration of ONOO minus to the 1 for reaction 3 over ONOO minus reaction 2. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and let's plug in those values. So we have the log of 2.03 times 10 to the negative 11 over 1.02 times 10 to the negative 11 is equal to the log of, okay, all right, the concentration we've got, so for NO3, 2, okay. Reaction 3, we have 6.25 times 10 to the negative 4, and then we have 1.25 times 10 to the negative 4 raised to the n power, because we don't know the dependence, times 2.5 times 10 to the negative 4 raised to the 1 power over 6.25 times 10 to the negative 5 to the 1 power. Okay, so we can do some simplification here. So we have a log of 2 is equal to log of, okay, 6.25 divided by 1.25, that's 4 to the n. And then we have these two things together, rules of logs, we can plus log of, all right, this is also a log of 4 to the 1. Okay, so we got log of 2 minus log of 4 equals n log to the 4. So n is equal to log of 2 minus log of 4 over log of 4. Okay, y'all, so I made a mistake here, so I got to go back and I got to erase this. Okay, so I got to make sure that all of my exponents are correct here. Alrighty, so when we go from experiment 3 to 2 for NO2, in reaction 3, we have 6.25 times 10 to the negative 5. Alrighty, and then we've got 1.25 times 10 to the negative 4. So when we go from 2 to 3, we're actually getting smaller for NO. And then we're getting bigger for our NO. So we'll go ahead and we're going to redo this. We get log of 2 is equal to log of, so this is log of 0.5 raised to the n power plus the log of 4, okay? So we get log of 2 minus log of 4 equals n times log to the 0.5, okay? So n is equal to log of 2 minus log of 4 divided by log of 0.5. And this, my friends, gives us a value of n equals 1. Okay, so We have first order dependence in NO. We have first order dependence on ONOO minus. So now that we've got that, what we can do is we can solve for our rate constant. Alrighty, so we know our rate equation is rate is equal to K times NO times ONOO minus. And so let's go ahead and plug in our answers. So we know that for a rate of 2.03 times 10 to the negative 11 meters per second, that is equal to our constant K times 6.25 times 10 to the negative 5th times 2.5 times 10 to the negative 4th. Alrighty, so to solve for K, we get 6.25 times 10 to the negative 5th times 2.5 times 10 to the negative, whoopsies, and 10 to the negative 4th, and we divide 2.03 times 10 to the negative 11th by this. All right, so we pause and calculate. Alrighty, and if we go through and we carry out that calculation, we get a value of 1.3 times 10 to the negative 3rd. Now, what are the units? If we have a rate of molar per second, okay, and we have molar squared on our denominator, we have to have second in our denominator of our rate constant to get our second, and we have to have 1 molar in our denominator. So if we multiply these, our 2 cancels out, and then we get final units of meters per second in our rate. So our units for a second order answer rate constant are going to be 1 over molar times second, or molar to the negative 1, second to the negative 1. Hope this helps. Sorry for the mistake, but I want to make sure I get it up quick. See y'all later.